let's be honest here. 007 Racing was a bit of a blunder. Okay, it sucked. It wasn't received well, and it was time for Electronic Arts to focus on the next generation consoles. Yet, after the Game Boy Color release of The World's Not Enough in 2001. Supposedly, EA was planning to develop yet another version of The World Is Not Enough for the PlayStation 2 and the PC. It's a good thing they didn't, because my god, let's calm down with the adaptations of that film. I've already covered the 3 existing widely different variants out there. Eventually, and thankfully, the idea was scrapped and the PC version was scrapped entirely. Instead, EA sought out to develop an original story to be released for the PlayStation 2, which was out for around a year at this point. The 6th generation of video game consoles. It was a pretty awesome time for gaming. I personally grew up and loved the Nintendo 64, but I was incredibly excited to move up and get a Nintendo GameCube during the Christmas of 2001. But as far as the releases go, the 6th generation simply consisted of only 4 main options: the Sega Dreamcast, Sony PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, and the big newcomer, Microsoft Xbox. The Dreamcast was the first to be released in 1998 and 1999 and ended up easily selling the least of the 4, which ended Sega's tenure in the console industry. The PlayStation 2 was next in 2000, and well, yeah, it's safe to say this console freaking crushed its competitors. Not only did it beat out the others, the PlayStation 2 is the single best-selling console of all time. I finally got mine about 10 years ago and I still use it on occasion. The GameCube and Xbox came out next in 2001 and 2002 and ended up selling about the same, with the Xbox slightly edging it out. Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft will go on to be the next big 3 in console gaming even to present day. It was a time where graphics were taking the next big leap and cartridges were a thing of the past, as they all used discs from this point forward. Except for the Switch, but that's a hybrid system. As an aside, the Game Boy Advance was now the frontrunner in handheld gaming, but we'll get to that guy down the road. In the Bond series proper, we're still in the era between Pierce Brosnan's 3rd and 4th films of The World Is Not Enough in 1999 and Die Another Day in 2002. Not enough time has passed for anything new to really happen in this retrospective, as Agent Under Fire was released on the PlayStation 2 only about 2 months after The World Is Not Enough on the Game Boy Color. So yeah, nothing new to report here from me. Bond was basically about gaming at this point. So after the 4th version of The World Is Not Enough idea was scrapped, EA Games got to work on a release for just the PlayStation 2 at this point. They used developer EA Redwood Shores to utilize the engine used in the Quake 3 Arena game to develop a standalone new first-person shooter Bond game. EA Redwood Shores was known for developing a bunch of Tiger Woods golf games, a few Sims games, and then eventually becoming Visceral Games, and being known for the successful Dead Space series. They also went on to develop 2 future Bond games as well, which we will get to in time. Weirdly enough, the original plan was to use Roger Moore's voice and likeness as Bond, making his return to the series 16 years after his last film as Bond in 1985's A View to a Kill. It did not work out in the end, but I think that would have been really cool to see. Instead, they used Andrew Bicknell to be sort of like Brosnan's Bond, and Adam Blackwood returning for his voice, which made sense at the time. If they couldn't actually use Pierce Brosnan, it's best to continue the trend of getting kinda close to him. The cover is an indication of that, since Bond is almost completely in shadow, something that is not the case in the next game, Nightfire. Reminds me of the atrocity that is Madden 64, where they couldn't even use NFL logos and names, but that's an extreme comparison. This isn't nearly that bad. But Agent Under Fire, or 007 Agent Under Fire, or James Bond 007 Agent Under Fire, I'm not sure what the official name is, was released in North America on November 13th, 2001 for the PlayStation 2, and then in Europe on November 30th. But that November 13th time in North America must have been pretty hectic, as the Xbox was released only 2 days later, with the GameCube very quickly following its release only 5 days later. Interestingly, Agent Under Fire would not be released for those systems until March of 2002, as they were actually ports of the PlayStation 2 version. The 3 versions are all identical to each other, with only a few very minor differences. Graphically, they're all very close, with the GameCube version loading and running a little faster, with the other 2 having a slight boost in graphic quality. Also, the GameCube and Xbox versions added bots to their multiplayer, and can have up to 4 players instead of 2 on the PS2, but those are basically it. No more of this having 3 different developers working on the same story like The World's Not Enough. EA is now saying, here's the game we made, now you guys battle it out for sales on your consoles. Not my problem. Sales-wise, the PlayStation 2 version would go on to sell over 2 million copies and would be the 67th best-selling PS2 game. It sold a lot less on the GameCube and Xbox and is still a far cry from GoldenEye sales, but if you add all three consoles in, sales were definitely a step up from how it's been going. I honestly can't remember when I first played this. I think it was a Blockbuster rental way back when for the GameCube, but I did eventually beat it around a decade ago. But this is certainly a brand new era in Bond games. In my opinion, this is the beginning of the modern era. Okay, let's check out the back of the case. When the world needs a hero, James Bond answers the call. Oh, no more blurbs or long paragraphs explaining how this is the most exciting adventure yet. Just one line with some side features. I do like the encounter stunning Bond girls one though. There's something oddly creepy about that one since they're still cartoon images. Okay, let's do this. It's sort of all coming together here. We don't have the actual scenes from the movies in a montage, but what we do have are different moments in the game you're about to play with a great sounding version of the Bond theme. It's a bit more of an accurate representation of the game itself than showing scenes from a movie to make the game look much worse, although I do love those PS1 openings anyway. The only thing missing here is the gun barrel sequence. Oh well. Also, wow, look at how good this looks in comparison to what we've seen in the retrospective. Gotta look at it through the lens to appreciate it, since these graphics are 19 years old at the time of this video. A major step up from the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 though. We're then treated to a pretty cool menu screen with a silhouetted female rolling onto the screen and pointing her gun. Very reminiscent of the infamous Bond title sequences of the past. Mission 1 is called Trouble in Paradise, and you're given a mission rundown by M, once again voiced by Karen Pascoe, returning from Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, and 007 Racing.
One of their agents, a Miss Zoe Nightshade, recently sent out a distress signal.
She tells you that they received a distress signal in Hong Kong from a CIA ally by the name of Zoe Nightshade, a very PG attempt at a Bond name, and MI6 wants Bond to rescue her and investigate a potential biological weapons smuggling ring. Your objectives for this one are to infiltrate research facility, find courier case containing vials, and rescue Zoe Nightshade. But as we all know, this is basically the introductory level to get used to the controls. The intro scene plays out with a helicopter dropping off a man with a briefcase, and Bond sneaks his way into the platform. And wow, look how good this looks already, especially coming right off 007 Racing. Q then tells you that you are given two different paths to enter the compound. Use the Q claw to enter through a vent, or the Q decryptor to go right through the front door. The first thing you ever do in this game is make a pathway decision. I think that's pretty awesome. However, John Cleese did not return as the voice of R for this one, and we have Miles Anderson doing his best Q impression.
Or your Q decryptor could open that digital lock.
Who weirdly enough voiced the Swiss banker LaChase in The World Is Not Enough.
It's a terrible tragedy, but...
We're back to the standard first person, and it does control pretty similarly to GoldenEye or the PS1 The World Is Not Enough, except no matter which of the three versions you're playing, the controllers now have a dual analog stick. A common way of playing is to use the left one to move Bond forward, back, left, and right, and use the right stick to aim the cursor around. A utilizes action commands, R shoots, and the D-pad changes weapons and gadgets. You kinda have to spend a little bit of time learning them, but then it's pretty easy to adjust to. I'm personally playing the GameCube version here. But there is one thing I must point out, and it tends to be the point of criticism here. What were they thinking with these Pac-Man pellet bullets? Look at how slow they go. It's like using a Nerf gun to take enemies down. Was this to try and make the game less violent looking? I'm honestly not really sure, but man, it really makes shooting super awkward. I don't know what they were thinking here, but it's a pretty big criticism. The level itself, though, is pretty straightforward, as it should be for the first level. The camera even stops gameplay to show you things like body armor to pick up. Q and M interject with telling you exactly what to do, which emphasizes the tutorial feel. It's kind of funny that this tutorial style level involves you rescuing a main character in the story from death, but at least they're trying to get you invested in the story from the get-go. This is a cool little area though. Eventually you will come across the vial case and then a giant room with a submarine that has Zoe being tied up to a pole. Across from you is a man with a sniper pointed at her. A brief little cutscene plays with a look at who the villain is. Shoot the sniper guy and make your way down to Zoe by using the Q laser on her lock. End mission. Not a bad start, and it does have a James Bond story feel to it. You're introduced to characters from a distance, and it's sort of like the third act of one of the films with the rescuing of Zoe. But you know it can't be that easy, and whether you're invested in the story or not, you don't entirely know what's going on or where it's going, so props to them there. Mission 2 is called Precious Cargo, and hey, the gameplay is about to be mixed up here. Bond and Zoe are on the run, and it now becomes an on-rails shooter. Zoe is the driver, so you have no say as to where you're going, and it's up to you to shoot the tires of pursuing cars, stop helicopters, pedestrian enemies, and the like through the streets of Hong Kong. There really isn't much else to it. If you like on-rails shooters, you'll probably enjoy this. If you don't, it's only one level, and the first-person shooters resume. The one thing that always makes me laugh is when you come to this square with enemies on all three sides and they all choose to stand next to multiple exploding barrels. Why are there barrels there anyway? Just video game logic, I guess. Well, nobody is claiming that these games have the smartest of opponents. There really isn't much to figure out when it comes to objectives. Eventually you shoot this red switch which makes a thing hover over another thing, and you shoot that thing and then you accomplished it. The level ends with Q showing off your new car and... what's this? Guess you weren't safe after all, and now Zoe is dead. Well, that was fun. And that is where I will end it for now. Where does the story go from here? How will Bond deal with the failing of his mission? It really has a tune-in next time feel to it. And you know what? Props to them for trying something new here. The developers are trying their hand at an original story and trying to add in some variety of gameplay with the newest systems at the time. From a reception standpoint, the game is sort of all over the board. Edge and EGM gave it pretty awful reviews, but then like Game Informer gave it a 9.25 out of 10. For me, I think it's certainly a step in the right direction to kick off the modern era. It gave them a chance for an original story and to really find out what works and what doesn't work to adapt to the new generation. I think it's the best they've done since GoldenEye, aside from shooting yellow pellets at your enemies, and definitely worth checking out. As far as the multiplayer goes, it's your standard Bond multiplayer with more variety in the Xbox and GameCube versions, like bots. If you like Bond multiplayer, it's essentially what you'd expect. There's really not much more to say about that. So thank you everyone for being patient with this one. It took a little longer than I had hoped to release it, but I was all of a sudden having some major issues with recording game footage and they were all unusable. I was only able to finish this due to my friend James providing his gameplay that I can use. A huge thank you goes out to him for essentially keeping my channel going. There aren't too many more games to go, so James and I will be sure that this sees its completion. Please throw out a subscribe if you have not done so in order to help support this project. Appreciations are abound. Next time, we're going to broaden our horizons a bit, and there is going to be even more versions added than the standard 3 from Agent Under Fire. The handheld and computer market will be interjecting next time, along with a pretty wide range of release dates. It's going to be somewhat similar to The World Is Not Enough, with 2 of the versions being released all the way into 2004, once again later than another release in the middle. All will be explained next time as I try to make sense of it, so stay tuned for all that. James Bond will return in Nightfire.